Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing last night Israeli strikes deep inside Iran that have effectively decapitated Iran's military leadership and taken out nuclear scientists as well. Joining us now, Democratic member of the Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator, good morning. So when you heard the news of these strikes, you thought what?
Well, I think we all really worry about the risk to U.S. forces and U.S. interests. It appears as if this was an attempt by Israel to scuttle Donald Trump's negotiations with Iran. Of course, our preferred pathway here to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is diplomacy. Now, it's nightmarish that we are in this position because under the nuclear deal negotiated by President Obama, we had effectively gotten Iran so that they were at least a year, probably more, away from a nuclear weapon. Now, it is true, Iran, if they chose to get a nuclear weapon, could probably get one within weeks. That's because Donald Trump, pushed by Bibi Netanyahu, pulled out of the nuclear agreement. But Donald Trump was back at the table trying to renegotiate a diplomatic agreement. And this strike by Iran is clearly a stick in the eye for the American president because in addition to striking nuclear facilities and at least one of their top research scientists, reportedly Israel also killed the chief negotiator who was negotiating with the United States of America. And so it's pretty transparent that this was an effort to submarine, to undermine our diplomacy. Iran is weaker than they were. So are their proxies, but they still have significant military power. And there is a risk in the coming weeks that there is going to be a regional war, that the United States may get dragged into it, and that Iran may ultimately target our forces around the region, many of which are not very well protected. And that's something that I think should be on the minds of every American and every American military family right now.
So, Senator, what we heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu is basically what you said, that Iran had the capability at this point to get a nuclear weapon relatively quickly and that Israel simply couldn't wait anymore. There was no time for diplomacy. So I guess on the one hand, what are your hopes for what happened after this? And then what are your fears about what this might mean?
Well, let's be clear, though I have not received an updated intelligence briefing in the last 48 hours, there is reporting, which is not surprising, that our intelligence community did not believe that Iran had made the decision to break out. What we mean by that is they did not make the decision to go and obtain a nuclear weapon. And, of course, what Prime Minister Netanyahu is complaining about is of his own making. Yes, it is true. Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than ever before. But that is because Israel pushed Donald Trump to withdraw from the deal that had kept Iran a year and a half, 2 years away from getting a nuclear weapon. And clearly, our president, Donald Trump, didn't believe that a military strike was the right option. He, in fact, told the world that he had told Netanyahu to wait, to give him time for diplomacy. Now it looks as if diplomacy has no chance. Donald Trump tried to spin that overnight to say that Iran should come to the table and make a deal, but Israel killed their chief negotiator. That makes negotiations very hard, if not impossible.
And to your point, Senator, as of this morning, the White House saying they hope talks are still on this weekend, but no confirmation of that. We want to turn now to that incident yesterday with one of your colleagues, Senator Padilla of California, and how he was detained and pushed to the ground while trying to ask a question of Secretary Noem. We're going to show that video now, and then I'll ask you about it on the other side.
And balancing. Sir, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your hands off.
specifically how many of our ICE agents have been docked.
On the ground. On the ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go and put them behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Lay flat. Other hand, sir. Other hand. There's no recording loud on here.
So, Senator, despite what DHS claimed, we can clearly hear Senator Padilla did identify himself. He is, it's almost hard to believe as we watch that video yet again, shoved to the ground. This is a member of a co-equal branch of government trying to ask a question of the executive branch, and that's what happened. So let's just get your thoughts on the matter. And more than that, also what we heard from some of your colleagues afterwards, as there was, with the exception of Lisa Murkowski, Senator of Alaska, who condemned what she saw. She said, this doesn't look like America. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what she said. But others, Republican senators, and Speaker Johnson called for, indeed, a condemnation and a censure, but not of DHS, not of Secretary Noem, but rather of Senator Padilla.
Yeah, let's just get the facts out there once again. Senator Padilla identified himself. You can hear it clearly on that video. He apparently was wearing a pullover that said United States Senate on it. And maybe most importantly, he didn't burst into that room. He was led into that room by members of the administration. He was there with an FBI agent and a member of the National Guard. So members of the administration brought him into that room. It was a press conference, a place where people are supposed to ask questions of the secretary. He did that. Now, maybe he wasn't called upon by the secretary, but that's not illegal. That is not an excuse for that kind of brutal treatment. And what the president is trying to do is to intimidate this country, to try to intimidate members of Congress, to say that if you turn out and protest against this administration, if you criticize me, you will be met with violence. But if you use violence on my behalf, like the January 6th protesters, you will be immunized. You will be protected. I don't think it's going to work. I think you're going to see this weekend more people out on the streets protesting Donald Trump's thievery and corruption. I think it's going to have the opposite impact. And yes, I stayed on the Senate floor last night with my friends Cory Booker and Brian Schatz and Adam Schiff from California, and we waited 4 hours for a Republican to come down to the Senate floor to condemn what happened. And as you said, not only did they not condemn it, but they basically said he deserved what he got simply because he was disrespectful to the president. What a world we live in today. If simply because you raise a voice in service of your constituents, you are going to be met with violence. That's what happens in dictatorships, in authoritarian regimes. We are in a really perilous moment in this country. We're at a point of no return. Republicans shouldn't think that they will be protected from violence in the future if they excuse it when Donald Trump uses it on his behalf.
Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator, thanks so much. We appreciate it.